In this video, we'll get our solar system moving through the use of behaviors. Our objectives will be to use behaviors to get our game objects rotating in a logical fashion, understand a bit about parent-child relationships between game objects in Unity, and understand the difference between the world coordinate system and local coordinate systems of game objects. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is get our sun moving. So we've got this scripts folder. This contains a number of pre-created C# scripts that we're going to be using in our project today. Most notably for this part, we're going to be using the rotate around script. So if you click on a script, you can kind of see a preview over here. You don't edit scripts directly within Unity. You typically open up a external script editing tool or a text editing tool. Unity comes with a tool called MonoDevelop, which we'll talk about later in this course. But for now, we're not going to actually do any coding. We're just going to use these pre-created scripts that come with this set of assets. So over here, let me go ahead and select on the sun, and of course I can hit the F key to zoom right in. We're going to attach that rotate around script, or often they're called behaviors, right to the sun. So, there's many ways of doing everything in Unity. It is a very visual environment, so I could literally click and hold on the rotate around script. I can drag it over and drop it right in the scene view on the sun game object. I could also drop it right on the sun in the hierarchy. Or if the sun is selected, I can also drop it right in the inspector. So all three of those methods do the exact same thing. If I let go here, it will add that rotate around script to the sun game object. Scripts basically become components, just like the transform component. We've got another component now in our inspector. And you can see it says rotate around. The script has two additional properties that we can set. One is the target. The target is what we want to rotate around, and the second is the speed. If you don't set a target, it'll basically rotate around the center of the world, I believe. But we can actually set a target. These things, once again, you can drag and drop things, or when you've got the little dot next to it, you can click on that. It will open up a selection tool, which will show all the possible things that you can select of that certain data type. So this is looking for a transform attached to a game object, and these are all of our game objects that have transforms on them in the world. And we want the sun to spin around itself, so I can just go ahead and select sun. So once again, I could do it that way through that little selection pop-up. I could have also just grabbed the sun game object, dragged it over here, and dropped it into that slot. The final thing I want to do is set the speed. And this script is set to pick the number of degrees per rotation, the number of degrees rotating per second. So let me go ahead and pick 5 degrees per second and hit return. And we haven't actually played our project yet, but so now that we actually have it do something, I can actually hit the play button and the script will start to execute. And it's kind of hard to see down in the game view because we don't have any textures or any materials applied yet to the game object. We'll do that here in a moment. But we can tell up in the scene view that it is actually rotating when the sun is selected. If I click on a different object, like the Earth, it's a little hard to tell. But once again, if I click back on the sun, you can see the sun is actually rotating. Now, while I'm playing, the Unity interface darkens a little bit, and you can see the play button is depressed. I can actually make changes over here. So with the speed of 5, let me go ahead and change it to 50, for example, and hit return. You can see now I'm rotating much faster. But notice what happens when I stop playing. So let me hit the play button to stop playing. Notice the speed went back to 5. Okay, so when you're not playing, you're in edit mode, and in edit mode you can make changes. So I could, let's say change this to 10. That change, sticks in essence. It stays. When I hit play, now I'm rotating at 10. If I go ahead and modify this and change it to 100, for example, we can see the result of that as we're playing. It's sort of a quick way to do iterative development to kind of test things out, kind of. I can actually click and drag right by the speed, to kind of get the speed that I really want. But once again, after then I have to kind of look at that and say, oh, it's 156. And then when I stop playing, it goes back to the original setting, so I would have to then change that. So for sake of example, the sun's going to rotate fairly slow, so I'll just leave it at 5. Let's go ahead and do the same thing to the Earth. So I'll select the Earth. I'm going to use the rotate around script, so I'll use the other technique. I'll drag and drop it right on the game object in the scene. You can see it attached it over here as a component on the Earth game object. Once again, I'm going to set the target to itself. So I'll drag the Earth game object out of the hierarchy, set it as the target, and go ahead and set a speed of, let's just say 1 degree per second, and go ahead and play that. And you can see it's moving very, very slow. So let's go ahead and increase that up to 10. And we can always, quickly test things, see it rotating. And the last thing, let's go ahead and get the Earth rotate, or the moon rotating as well. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop the rotate around right onto the moon game object in the hierarchy. Select the moon to see it. I'm going to set the target of that to the moon through the select transform pop-up. And I'm going to go ahead and set this speed, let's just say to 15 degrees per second. And go ahead and play. So now, as I select these things, I can see they're all rotating, essentially spinning around their own internal axis, their sort of local axis, or their local origin. But what about making the planets rotate around each other? I mean, that after all, that's our end goal here. So I'll go ahead and stop. So I go back into edit mode, and there's a couple different ways of doing this. For the Earth, I want the Earth to rotate around the sun. So let me actually add a second rotate around script to the game object. So I'll go ahead and drag and drop it onto the inspector with the Earth game object selected. And you can see I can actually have multiple of the same component type, and when they are scripts. I'll set the target of this to the sun rather than to itself. And I'll go ahead and set the speed. Let's just say, so we can clearly see it. You got to make sure that you select the right component. So the second component here that's rotating around the sun, I'm going to go ahead and set it to 40. Go ahead and hit play. And you can see, oh yeah, the Earth is definitely rotating around the sun. But it's kind of leaving the moon behind, right? So let's go ahead and stop this. So we need to get the moon rotating around the Earth. But since the Earth is moving, rotating around the sun, if I do the same technique, basically the moon will kind of be left behind. So I can show that really quick. Add that rotate around script to the moon, set its target as the Earth. Let's set the rotation speed a little bit slower. Let's just say 5 per second, and go ahead and hit play. And you can see that the moon is kind of chasing the Earth now as the Earth is spinning around the sun. Clearly that's not what we want. And then as it comes by, it kind of tries to catch up there. Let me go ahead and click the Y axis so we can see kind of a top-down view. Zoom out a little bit. So as I'm playing, it makes it a little clearer what's actually happening there. So, really the best way to resolve this is to make the moon a child of the Earth. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that second rotate around script. So you can always remove these components that are removable by clicking the little gear drop down, and you can select remove component. And that gets rid of that rotate around. I want to keep the other one because I still want the moon to rotate around itself. So I'm going to basically take the moon and drag it and drop it right on the Earth. And what that does is it makes the moon a child of the Earth. So they're both game objects, of course, but this is the parent game object and this is the child. And the child, basically, it's transformed now, modified, and it's relative to its parent. So notice the position is now -1, 0, 0 because it's -1 meters in the x direction away from its parent. If I drag it back to the top level, you can see it's 1.5 off of the world coordinate system because the world is essentially its parent. Once again, put it back on the Earth, and it's -1 meters from the center of its parent, which is the Earth. So now when I play, without adding any scripts, you can see that as the Earth is rotating around the sun, so too is the moon rotating. So it basically maintains its same relationship to its parent all the way around, as the Earth moves. And of course, it's spinning itself. Now, if we really want to get fancy, we can have the Earth also, the moon also rotate around the Earth. So I can go ahead and add a second script like we had before. Set the target as the Earth. Give it a speed of 5 again, and go ahead and play this. And now, of course, we've got the sun spinning, we've got the Earth spinning and rotating around the sun. We've got the moon spinning. It's moving with the Earth as the Earth rotates around the sun, and it's also rotating around the Earth. So as you watch this, you can see that it does, continue to circle the Earth. So to reiterate, the world coordinate system is centered at the origin of the world. Often it makes sense to discuss game objects' location overall using the world coordinate system. So for example, the Earth rotated around the center of the world, or 0, 0, 0. The local coordinate system is the coordinate system where the origin is a defined location related to the game object, usually the center of the game object. The local coordinate system made sense to talk about when we spoke about the planet spinning around its own axis, like the sun, the Earth, and the moon spun around its own origin. Parent-child relationships add yet a third coordinate system. That is, a child may move relative to its parent's local coordinate system, as we saw with the moon moving around the Earth as the Earth moved around the sun. So what's next? In the next video, we'll start to make our solar system look a bit more aesthetically pleasing through the use of materials.